Why did the room fall silent when she spoke for the first time that day? The training hall echoed with the low thud of boots and the sharp bark of commands. Sweat stained the mats. Voices carried, taunting, laughing, testing. And in the center of it all stood a woman who hadn't said a word since dawn. Lieutenant Wren Atros, the only female candidate in the SEAL compound's brutal combat program. They called her the Ghost when she first arrived, not because she was pale or quiet, but because she never seemed entirely there. She moved differently, too precise, too controlled, like she was following an invisible rhythm no one else could hear. That morning the men had mocked her openly. They called her a political stunt, a Pentagon experiment, a liability. And the instructor, Chief Petty Officer Lazarus Reed, 20 years in force recon, undefeated hand-to-hand legend, hadn't stopped them. He just watched, waiting for the inevitable. Wren didn't respond. She simply adjusted her gloves, stepped onto the mat, and waited for the command. "Begin," Reed barked. The motion was almost invisible. One moment he lunged, confident, predatory. The next he was on the ground, his arm locked at an impossible angle, his breath gone, his face pressed into the mat. No one saw how she moved. Not even the cameras would have caught it. Reed tapped, gasping, his voice cracking as he tried to keep composure. Tears filled his eyes, not from pain but from disbelief. Wren released him instantly, stood, straightened her posture. "Permission to leave the mat, sir." The silence that followed was heavier than the noise before. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned, boots clicking in perfect rhythm, and left the hall without looking back. Outside, the sun over Coronado cut through the morning haze. The base was alive, recruits running drills, instructors shouting cadence, the faint roar of the Pacific surf in the distance. But for Wren, the world narrowed to her own steady breathing, the rhythm that kept her centered. 3 hours earlier, before the compound had even stirred, she'd been on the beach alone, barefoot in the fog, moving through a series of slow, fluid motions that looked nothing like standard PT. Her arms traced invisible lines through the mist, her body flowing between stances that were equal parts grace and lethality. From his office overlooking the grounds, Commander Thaddeus Blackwood had watched her. He'd seen every type of recruit in his 30-year career, heroes, prodigies, zealots, but never anyone like her. The phone on his desk buzzed. "This isn't a request, Commander. It's an order," came the clipped voice from the Pentagon. "With all due respect," Blackwood replied, eyes still on the solitary figure moving through the fog, "my program wasn't designed for social experiments. She meets every requirement. You'll give her the chance to try, make it work." The line went dead. Blackwood set the phone down carefully, too carefully. He flexed his fingers once before turning back to the window. Down below, Wren's final movement ended with a breath, measured, precise, her silhouette dissolving into the fog. She didn't know she was being watched. Or maybe she did. People like her always knew. By 600, the trainees assembled in formation. 15 men, 1 woman, all standing in the cold morning light that painted the concrete pale gold. Reed walked the line, boots striking like hammers. He stopped in front of her. "Lieutenant Atros," he said, letting her name hang in the air like a challenge. "Your presence here represents a fascinating shift in policy." Wren didn't flinch. "Yes, sir." "Tell me, Lieutenant, were the standards lowered for you? Or do you honestly believe you can complete this program?" A few of the men chuckled quietly. Wren's reply came steady. "I'm here to meet the same standards as everyone else, sir." Reed leaned in, close enough that only she could hear. "We'll see about that." Down the line, one candidate didn't laugh. Ensign Endorian Frost watched with a calm, unreadable expression. Where others saw novelty or threat, he saw calculation. Training moved fast that morning. The obstacle course, an unforgiving gauntlet meant to break body and mind, weighted like a beast of sand and steel. When Wren reached the rope climb, she paused. Her hand hovered just inches from the coarse fiber. "Lieutenant," whispered a voice behind her. It was Quillen, one of the quieter officers. "That knot's been tampered with." Her eyes flicked once toward his, unreadable, then back to the rope. Without hesitation, she adjusted her approach, compensated for the weakened knot with a shift of balance so subtle no one else noticed. She scaled the structure efficiently, deliberately avoiding any show of strength or speed. From the observation platform above, Lieutenant Commander Phoenix Walcott watched, his jaw tightening. "She's holding back," he murmured. Reed snorted, "Or she's just barely keeping up." Walcott shook his head, her breathing too controlled for someone at their limit. Below, the men whispered bets. $10 she doesn't last the week," muttered Caldwell, smirking. Wren finished the course, didn't look at him, didn't need to. That night when she returned to the barracks, a note waited on her bunk, folded perfectly, placed dead center. She opened it without expression. "They know you were at Vashi Station. Watch your six." No reaction, no panic. She struck a match, burned the note to ash, crushed it between her fingers until it vanished. For a brief moment her mind betrayed her, a flash of mountains, snow, foreign voices, a woman teaching her a movement that looked more like dance than combat, then the roar of a helicopter, a scream, silence. Wren inhaled, centered herself. The past was noise, the mission was now. The next morning's briefing brought a twist. Walcott stood over a terrain model, pointing with a stylus. "For Alpha Team Lead, Lieutenant Atros." A ripple of disbelief spread through the group. Leadership roles were reserved for proven candidates. This wasn't an opportunity. It was a setup. Wren stepped forward. "Yes, sir." She studied the map quietly. Then, without explanation, began to alter the plan, shifting positions, redrawing approach vectors, rewriting strategy with small, deliberate moves. "That's not standard procedure," someone objected. "No," she replied simply, "it's not." She didn't defend, didn't explain, just kept marking the map. Quillen watched, intrigued. Her modifications weren't random. They compensated for terrain blind spots and potential ambush zones that only a seasoned operative would anticipate. He followed her lead. The others hesitated, but eventually obeyed. The exercise began in confusion. Her unconventional plan seemed clumsy at first, but as it unfolded, the genius became apparent. Every trap the instructors had planted failed. Every hidden ambush point neutralized before it even began. When the drill ended, Walcott exchanged a glance with Reed. The instructor's jaw was tight. "Combat assessment begins tomorrow," Reed announced. His tone held something personal now. The men went quiet. Combat evaluations weren't scheduled yet. This was deliberate. Wren didn't argue, but her eyes flicked toward the window where she caught Frost speaking in low tones with Commander Blackwood. Their posture was tense, coded. She recognized the signs of men who knew more than they said. That night while the others slept, the soft glow of a monitor flickered in the admin wing. Someone was accessing personnel files, Wren's file. Entire sections were blacked out. Only 3 words remained. Operation Eidolon Asset. By dawn, whispers filled the base. Something about special treatment. Something about classified transfers. Wren ignored it. She ran her drills, maintained discipline, spoke only when required. Then came the assessment. The training hall looked different that morning. More observers than usual lined the walls, officers, analysts, even a civilian in a tailored suit. Wren cataloged each face instinctively. The civilian's watch was military grade. His shoes expensive, but his stance was that of someone used to authority. Director Everett Hawthorne, though no one said his name aloud. Chief Reed stood at the center of the mat, not in PT gear this time but full uniform. The scar along his jaw caught the light. "Today," he announced, "we evaluate combat readiness, hand-to-hand proficiency, standard rules, until submission or sufficient demonstration. He began pairing candidates. One by one they fought, one by one they fell. And when the last match ended, only Wren remained uncalled. Reed turned to her. "Lieutenant Atros, since this is unique, I'll assess you myself." A murmur ran through the spectators. Not protocol, not fair, but no one objected. Wren stepped forward, removed her boots, her socks. Scars ringed her ankles, thin, deliberate like surgical marks. Reed noticed, filed it away. They faced each other. "The purpose of this assessment," Reed said for the crowd, "is to test real-world capability. In combat, size and strength matter." He lunged. She moved barely. His punch met air. His elbow found nothing. His follow-through died mid-motion. Reed adjusted, attacked harder. Combinations of strikes, sweeps, grapples, each countered with minimal motion, controlled, effortless. He feinted high, swept low, locked her arm, and paused when her collar shifted, revealing part of a geometric tattoo near her collarbone. Commander Blackwood, watching from the wall, stiffened. Hawthorne's eyes narrowed. Reed, distracted for a fraction of a second, pressed harder. "This is why standards matter, Lieutenant," he growled, pushing into his final sequence. Wren's eyes changed. The detachment vanished. Something fierce, older, colder took its place. What happened next seemed impossible. She pivoted, redirected his weight, and the next thing anyone saw was Reed on the ground, arm twisted behind his back, her knee pressing into his shoulder blade. Controlled pressure. No wasted motion. Silence. The only sound, his hand tapping the mat. Wren released, stood, straightened. "Permission to leave the mat, sir." Reed looked up, dazed, breath uneven. He nodded once. She saluted, turned, walked out. The trainees who had mocked her only stared. Even Frost, calculating, composed, watched her leave with something like awe. In the locker room, she lifted her shirt. The bruise from Reed's blow had already begun to darken. Beneath the old scar along her ribs, a faint metallic shape pulsed, something embedded deep under the skin. She exhaled slowly. The device was intact, her cover fractured but not broken. Whatever mission had brought her here, it had just accelerated. And as the door creaked open behind her, she didn't turn. She already knew someone was watching. Because ghosts never truly go unseen. Why was Frost in the commander's office that late, whispering behind closed doors? Wren didn't linger in the locker room. The echo of her own footsteps was the only sound as she crossed the empty corridor. Outside, dawn light cut through the hall's narrow windows like blades, slicing the air into pale gold fragments. She could still feel every pair of eyes that had watched her. The disbelief, the fear, the shifting recognition that she wasn't what they thought. And beneath all that, something else, a tightening thread pulling her toward whatever came next. From the far side of the training compound, the sound of raised voices carried faintly. She slowed, listening. Commander Blackwood's tone was sharp, controlled, but the second voice, Frost, held quiet urgency. She couldn't make out words, but she could hear tension. A negotiation, a warning. By the time she reached the barracks, the noise had died. Inside, the atmosphere had changed. The men who'd spent days mocking her now avoided her eyes. Not from respect. Respect took longer, but from unease. She had crossed an invisible line, and no one quite knew what to do with that. Caldwell muttered something under his breath when she passed. She didn't respond. Quillen, his usual calm expression softened with thought, gave her a brief nod. She returned it, small, deliberate acknowledgement between professionals who'd seen enough to recognize quiet skill when they saw it. Later that afternoon, a notice appeared on the compound board. New tactical scenario, 2300 hours, night operation. It wasn't standard, not for that phase of training. When Wren saw the team list, her pulse slowed slightly. Team 4, Frost commanding, Caldwell, Quillen, and herself. An odd mix, one vocal critic, one silent observer, one mystery. And Frost. The orders were clear. Night infiltration of the Southern Communications compound. Retrieve the data package. Live fire simulation. But she saw what the others didn't. The parameters had been rewritten 3 times in the last 24 hours. Someone was moving pieces quietly behind the curtain. When Quillen caught up to her outside the mess hall, his expression was uneasy. "Something's off about this," he said quietly. "They don't run live fire this early. Not unless—" He trailed off. "Unless someone wants to see how people react under real pressure," Wren finished. He frowned. "You think it's another setup?" Her tone was neutral. "I think pressure reveals truth, and someone's watching closely." As evening fell, the base dimmed into that strange half-silence before operations. The sunset bled across the bay in long streaks of crimson, fading into indigo. In the armory, the metallic clicks of magazines and safeties echoed like distant thunder. Wren checked her gear alone, methodical, focused. Every strap, every latch, every mechanism calibrated to precision. But mixed among her standard issue was something else. Small, discrete devices that no candidate should have. A signal jammer disguised as a radio component. A ceramic blade hidden in her boot. And embedded in her dog tags, a beacon that wasn't meant for emergency rescue. It was for extraction. At 22:50, Team 4 assembled by the hangar gate. Frost addressed them with crisp authority. Objective: infiltrate the comms facility, retrieve data from secured terminal, exfiltrate undetected. Lieutenant Atros on point. Caldwell's jaw tightened. "Sir, with all due respect, putting her on point." "The assignment stands," Frost cut in. "Lieutenant Atros has demonstrated unique capability." Wren held his gaze. Frost didn't blink. There was understanding there, one that didn't belong in normal training. At 2300 hours, they moved out. The night was thick, heavy with ocean moisture. The only sounds were their boots against earth, the muted hum of distant generators, and the faint rhythm of her own breathing counting steps. 15 minutes into the approach, Wren raised a fist. "Halt." The air changed. Patterns didn't match the recon brief. Security lights had shifted. The route's angles were wrong. "Sir," she whispered, "we've deviated 14 degrees off vector." "Tactical adjustment," Frost replied quietly, "based on new patrol routes." Wren studied him through the dim light. His posture was steady, but his tone not entirely. He was steering them off course. "Understood," she said, and moved forward again. Her earpiece crackled once, then died, static. Not malfunction, interference, deliberate. Through her NVGs, faint motion flickered shapes ahead, moving with precision no training unit ever used. Too coordinated, too quiet. She signaled the team to take cover. Frost hesitated, then gave a silent nod. But before she could reposition, his voice came low behind her. "We're splitting up. Caldwell with me east, Quillen west. Atros hold the center line. Observation post." It wasn't protocol, it was isolation. Quillen hesitated. She met his eyes, barely shaking her head. "Don't." Then they vanished into the dark. Wren crouched, senses straining. The forest around the southern perimeter was too still. Even the insects had gone silent. She scanned once, twice, and then came the sound. A crack, distant but distinct. A live round. It hit the tree inches from her head. Bark exploded. She rolled instantly, breath steady, body low. 2 more shots, not blanks, not training ammo. The ambush had begun. She didn't call out, didn't waste time. Training took over the other kind, the kind she wasn't supposed to have. The first attacker moved through the shadows, fast, silent, professional, but she was faster. A fluid motion, a strike at the throat, a twist of the wrist. He was down before his body even realized it had lost control. The second came in hard, disciplined. She broke his stance, redirected momentum, sent him crashing into the brush. Unconscious, not dead. Her pulse stayed steady, every motion economical, controlled. And then gunfire in the distance, Quillen's direction. Ren moved toward it without hesitation. She found him pinned behind a fallen log, exchanging fire with unseen figures. Sparks danced through the dark as rounds struck metal and dirt. "These aren't blanks," he gritted. "No," she said quietly, checking his arm, grazed but functional. "This isn't an exercise." "Who are they?" "The wrong people," she replied, asking the right questions. "Where Frost?" Her voice was calm, detached. "Not who you think he is." He stared at her, meaning. Meaning we're compromised. They needed movement, not explanations. "Can you move?" she asked. He nodded, jaw tight. "Then follow my lead, no questions." They advanced together, weaving through the trees, their steps synchronized by instinct. Ren's movements were silent, her awareness extending beyond sight, reading every vibration of sound and air. When they reached the perimeter fence, the communications compound loomed ahead, ordinary on the outside, too quiet within. No sentries, no instructors, no lights except one in the main comms room. "Wait here," Ren ordered. "Not a chance," Quillen countered. She assessed him quickly. "Fine, but you follow me, not procedure." They breached silently. The first corridor smelled of metal and oil. Down the hall, the hum of machines pulsed like a heartbeat. Ren's weapon tracked the sound. She peeked through the doorway, then froze. Ensign Frost stood inside, his posture relaxed, his expression calm. A technician lay bound and unconscious beside the terminal. Frost was typing, fast, focused. "Step away," she commanded, weapon raised. He didn't even flinch. "Lieutenant Atros," he said, almost amused, "or whatever your real name is." "Don't test me," she warned. "Hands where I can see them." He obeyed slowly, deliberately. "Looks bad, doesn't it?" he said, "but it's not what you think. You're accessing restricted communication networks during a live-fire ambush. You want to tell me what I'm supposed to think?" He smiled faintly. "That you're not the only one undercover here." Quillen entered behind her, weapon ready. "Sir, what the hell is going on?" "Apparently," Frost said calmly, "we've both been lied to." Ren's aim didn't waver. The flash drive now. He reached into his pocket, removed a small black drive and placed it on the console. "You think I'm the mole," he said. "That's why you're here, isn't it? That's what this entire performance has been about." "Evidence says otherwise," Ren replied. "Evidence," he repeated softly, "can be rewritten. Orders can't." Her expression didn't change, but her mind was already reevaluating. The ambush, the interference, the timing. He was too calm for a traitor, too informed. "I'm counterintelligence," Frost said finally, "assigned to investigate leaks in SEAL operations across the South China Sea. You're not the only one playing a role." Silence. It could have been truth, or the best lie she'd ever heard. Before she could decide, alarms erupted, red lights strobing, sirens splitting the air. Frost's composure broke for the first time. "That's not me." Ren's instincts snapped to full alert. "We're compromised again. Move." They exited the room as the entire compound came alive. Security personnel shouting, emergency shutters slamming down. Commander Blackwood appeared at the end of the corridor, weapon drawn, Chief Reed behind him. "Stand down." "Sir," Ren said sharply, lowering her weapon but keeping her posture ready. "The facility, under attack. Unknown hostiles inside." Blackwood's eyes shifted between her and Frost. "Inside, from training personnel." "No, sir," Frost answered, breath measured. "External infiltration, highly coordinated." "Office, now," Blackwood ordered. In the chaos of alarms and flickering lights, they followed him through corridors now alive with motion. Soldiers scrambling, emergency codes blaring, the hum of lockdown systems engaging. The door to the command office sealed behind them. Inside waited Director Hawthorne, calm as ever, his presence a still point amid the storm. He didn't ask questions, he already knew. "Lieutenant Atros," he said evenly, "it's time you told them why you're really here." Wren didn't move, didn't answer. Hawthorne placed a file on the desk, Project Vesper. The red stamp glared against the fluorescent light. 3 operatives, missing in action, all connected to SEAL operations in the South China Sea. Blackwood's face hardened. "You used my program as bait." "Containment," Hawthorne corrected. "We had reason to believe one of your officers was compromised." "Compromised?" Reed echoed. "You're saying there's a traitor on my base?" Wren met his gaze. Her voice was quiet, but every word hit like steel. "Not just a traitor, a broker, someone selling SEAL deployment data to foreign interests." The room went still. "Who?" Reed asked. "That," Wren said softly, "was my mission to find out." Outside, another explosion shook the compound. Lights flickered. Frost drew his sidearm. "We're out of time." Blackwood turned toward the window, the reflection of chaos flashing across his eyes. Then whoever it is just made their move. And somewhere beneath the compound, someone pressed a button that changed everything. How do you tell who the traitor is when everyone around you wears the same uniform? The blast hit like thunder. The lights flickered once, twice, then died. A cloud of smoke rolled through the corridor outside the commander's office, thick and choking. The emergency siren screamed alive, flashing red against the walls. Wren didn't wait for orders. She was already moving. Her instincts weren't trained for hesitation. They were built for survival. "Stay behind me," she said, voice low, steady. Reed ignored her, stepping past with his weapon drawn. "My base, my responsibility." Blackwood followed, jaw clenched, the weight of command heavy in his eyes. Frost moved in sync beside Wren, scanning angles, corners, his movements matching hers too perfectly for coincidence. The compound was chaos. Personnel flooded the halls, shouting over the alarms. Fire suppression systems hissed as smoke thickened. Somewhere above, metal groaned, a sound of failure. "This way," Wren called, pointing toward the east access tunnel. It was instinct, not rank, that made the men follow. They rounded the corner and stopped. The floor ahead was cratered, blown open. The blast had come from below. Through the smoke, the faint shimmer of server lights pulsed red like a heartbeat. "The weapons facility," Reed said grimly. "That's where they hit first." Frost checked his comm. "Static. No transmission. They're jamming every frequency." Wren crouched by the damaged flooring, scanning. The pattern was too precise. The explosives had been placed at stress junctions. Someone who knew the compound's design had done this. "This wasn't an attack," she murmured. "It was a message." Blackwood's voice cut through. "We regroup at command center. Move." As they advanced, Wren's focus shifted. Every detail mattered. The burn patterns on the walls, the formation of the security response, the faint metallic scent that wasn't from detonations but from cutting torches. Someone was breaching from inside. Halfway down the corridor, a figure emerged through the haze, Quillen, dragging an injured security officer. "Multiple breaches," he shouted. "They've taken out both communication arrays. We're blind." "Casualties?" Reed demanded. 4 confirmed wounded. No fatalities yet." Wren's voice was calm, clinical. "They're isolating us. Classic containment tactic before exfiltration." Blackwood turned to her, meaning someone trying to steal something, and cover their tracks by wiping the entire compound if needed. Another explosion, closer this time. The walls rattled. Somewhere down the hall, someone screamed. Wren felt it, the shift. The mission had changed. Her cover no longer mattered. Her instincts did. When they reached the command center, the doors were partially sealed. Reed forced them open with a crowbar, and they entered a scene of barely controlled panic. Officers worked frantically over consoles, the screens flickering with alerts. Wren moved toward the nearest terminal, scanning feeds. Multiple systems breached, south wing offline, east sublevel under lockdown. Blackwood's face drained of color, east sublevel. Operations server, she confirmed. That's our target data repository, Frost added, understanding dawning. The entire SEAL deployment network is stored there. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Then that's what they're after. Reed looked from one to the other. Who the hell is they? Before anyone could answer, the feed flickered, and there he was, Lieutenant Commander Walcott. The image showed him entering the weapons storage facility, two armed men flanking him. He moved with purpose, not panic. Walcott, Wren said quietly, he's the breach. Reed's expression twisted. No, he's been with me 10 years. Then he knows every entry point, every blind angle, every access code, Wren interrupted. The realization hit like a blow. Reed looked sick. Sublevel 2, Wren said, standing. That's where he's headed next. We stop him there or we lose everything. Blackwood nodded. Reed, take a team to secure the weapons vault. Frost, you're with perimeter. Atros with me. They moved fast. The stairwell to the lower levels was half collapsed, the air thick with dust and burned insulation. As they descended, emergency lights cast everything in red. It felt like walking into the heart of a wound. Blackwood's breathing was steady but labored. He wasn't built for field pursuit anymore, but pride kept him moving. Wren led, weapon up, senses expanded into the dark. How did you know? He asked quietly. Walcott was one of 3 suspects, she replied. The pattern fit. And the others? You, Abate, and Reed. Blackwood didn't react, just nodded once. Fair. The hallway at sublevel 2 was torn apart. Spent shells glinted under the emergency lights. A blood smear led toward the server room door. They're already inside, Blackwood said grimly. Wren signaled silence, listened. Voices muffled but distinct, Walcott giving commands, another man replying, nervous, fast, a civilian technician. She peeked through the narrow opening. 2 armed hostiles, 1 wounded man, Caldwell, and Walcott himself standing near the terminal overseeing a data transfer. Wren pulled back. 2 guards, 1 tech under duress, Walcott in control. Options? Blackwood asked. Contain, disable, extract the tech, but he'll kill him if we rush. Before she could finalize, footsteps approached from behind. She whirled, weapon up, then lowered it as Frost appeared with 2 security officers. Perimeter's hot, he reported. Multiple hostiles trying to breach east fence. Reed's team contained the weapons vault. Caldwell's missing. Not missing, Wren said. Inside with Walcott. His clearance gives them server access. Frost's expression hardened. Then we move now. Before she could agree, Walcott's voice carried through the metal door. I know you're out there, he called. And I know who you are, Lieutenant Atros. Wren froze. Blackwood frowned. He's bluffing. No, she said quietly, he's not. The door creaked open a few inches. Walcott's silhouette stood against the pale glow of monitors. Or should I say, Vesper 9. The name hit like a pulse through the air. Frost glanced at her sharply. Vesper what? Wren's jaw tightened. Come in, Walcott continued, his tone almost casual. Let's end the guessing, or watch this poor technician die wondering who you really are. Blackwood looked at her, voice low. That true? Wren met his eyes. I didn't choose the name, they gave it to me. Before he could ask more, Reed's voice crackled faintly through Frost's radio, static, fragmented but urgent. Commander, explosives, facility wired, entire compound, evacuation. The signal cut out. Wren exhaled once. He's buying time, the real target here. Blackwood's knuckles whitened on his weapon. The operation server. Exactly, Wren said, and Walcott's the key. Her voice steadied into command. We move on my signal, minimal fire. If he detonates, this place turns into a crater. Frost nodded. The others positioned themselves. Then silence. 30 seconds, Walcott called. Then I start shooting. Wren inhaled slowly, every nerve on edge, the scent of ozone, the hum of servers, the faint tremor beneath her feet as systems overloaded. She reached up and touched her dog tags. The embedded beacon beneath the metal warmed faintly, her last failsafe, a signal that once activated would bring help or erasure. Blackwood noticed, "What is that?" "Insurance," she replied quietly. He frowned. "If you go in there, he'll tell me what I need to know." Frost stepped forward. "You don't have to do this alone." "I was trained to," she said simply. "That's the problem." She holstered her weapon, hands raised. "I'm going in." Blackwood caught her arm. "Lieutenant, if there's anything you're not telling me." She met his gaze steadily. "Then I'm protecting you from it." And before he could stop her, she slipped through the door. The server room was colder than the halls outside. The whirring of hard drives filled the silence like whispering voices. Walcott stood near the technician, pistol pressed to the man's temple. Caldwell was at the console, watching data cascade across the screens, classified files transferring line by line. "Close the door," Walcott said. Wren obeyed. It clicked shut behind her. "You wanted me," she said quietly. "I'm here." Walcott smiled faintly. "The infamous Vesper 9. I expected more presence." "Sorry to disappoint," she replied. "I was expecting better loyalty from a commander." He chuckled. "Always so binary, loyalty or treason. You still believe in sides." "I believe in choices," she said. "Then make one," Walcott said. "Join us and learn the truth about who you really are." She didn't answer. Her eyes flicked once to Caldwell, once to the technician, once to the nearest vent shaft, calculating. "You think you know the program," Walcott went on, circling her slowly. "The implants, the conditioning, the orphans they turned into soldiers. They never told you why, did they?" Wren's jaw tightened. "They made you for obedience," he said. "Not purpose, but you can change that. You can evolve, like your colleagues from Vashi Station did." Her breath caught, but she didn't show it. "They're not dead," he said softly. "They chose to leave just like you could." Outside, the faint thump of explosions echoed through the compound. Time was running out. Wren's tone was ice. "You're lying." "Am I?" He lifted a small device from his pocket. 5 minutes until detonation. You stop the download, we all die. Or you walk away, and maybe you finally learn who made you what you are." Her hand twitched once toward her boot. He noticed, smirked. "Still hiding knives in your shoes." "You have no idea," she whispered. The next moment blurred into motion, so fast the cameras would later capture only fragments. Her foot snapped, the blade flicked, the steel buried itself in his shoulder. He shouted, dropped the gun, and in the same second she lunged forward, using his momentum against him. The guards turned, firing too late. Bullets sparked off the servers as she moved like a shadow, her form a ghost through flickering light. One guard down. The second disarmed before he could scream. Walcott recovered, gripping his wounded shoulder. "You can't stop this." "Watch me." And as she pressed the pistol to his chest, the siren screamed again. Long, continuous, final. The compound was seconds from collapse. But Wren's focus didn't waver. This wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about truth. And she was done letting someone else define hers. What happens when the truth you uncover destroys the reason you ever fought? The timer on Walcott's detonator blinked in red digits. 4 minutes. Smoke filled the server room. The air burned with ozone and cordite. Wren's pulse was calm, impossibly calm. the same rhythm that had carried her through a dozen missions that didn't officially exist. Walcott staggered back, clutching his bleeding shoulder, eyes full of manic defiance. "You don't understand, Atros," he hissed. "They made you forget. You were part of this before I ever was." Her weapon didn't move. "Then remind me." He laughed, a jagged sound. "You think Vashi Station was a deployment. It was a test. You weren't sent there to save anyone. You were the prototype." Ren said nothing. The server lights reflected in her eyes like fire. "Project Vesper," he continued, "wasn't about creating elite soldiers. It was about controlling them. Neural conditioning, emotional erasure. You were the only one who survived unbroken." Her breath hitched just slightly. It was the first crack in her voice anyone had heard. "Why tell me this?" she asked softly. "Because you deserve to choose who you are before they choose for you again." Behind him, Caldwell moved weakly, trying to reach for the console. Ren's eyes flicked to him, one fraction of a second, and Walcott used it. He lunged, striking her wrist, forcing her gun sideways. The shot went off, shattering a monitor, spraying sparks across the room. The detonator clattered to the floor. 3 minutes. Walcott dove for it. Ren followed. The impact slammed them both against the wall, the sound of their struggle muffled by the hum of dying servers. He reached the device first. She slammed her hand into his shoulder wound hard. He screamed, releasing it. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. "Tell me how to stop it," she demanded. "You can't," he gasped. "It's wired into the base's generator. Kill power and you kill everyone still trapped below." Her eyes went to the console. Systems cascading, fail-safes gone. Caldwell groaned from the floor. "He's lying. Manual override, sub-level control." Ren moved instantly, dragging Walcott toward the door. "Move," she ordered. Blackwood and Frost burst in as she emerged. Smoke, sirens, chaos. "What the hell happened?" Frost shouted. "Explosives on the generator," she snapped. "We've got less than 2 minutes." Blackwood turned to his comm, yelling orders. "Evacuate all personnel. Get Reed's team topside now." Ren shoved Walcott into Frost's custody. "If he moves, drop him." "Where are you going?" Frost demanded. She was already running, to end it. The corridor to the generator core was half collapsed. Flames licked the walls, the air a furnace. Her lungs burned. Each step echoed like thunder. She reached the lower sublevel, doors warped from the blast, metal glowing faintly red. The control room beyond was chaos. Sparks, fire, shattered screens. And in the center, the generator control node, humming violently, the timer projected above it. 1 minute, 20 seconds. Ren dove across the wreckage, her hands flying over the controls. Emergency lockouts rejected every command. Override denied. Access denied. Denied. Her heart pounded once, then steadied. She yanked a cable from her pack, plugged it into the port near her neck. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the connection hit. Code poured across the screen in reverse patterns. Command lines unfurling like veins of light. Her neural interface synced to the generator system directly. Pain stabbed through her skull, white-hot electric. Her vision blurred, edges trembling, but she stayed connected. 50 seconds. Her breath hitched. Sweat ran down her temple. Blood from her nose dripped onto the console. Manual override accepted. The system finally responded. Her hands shook. "Come on." The final command loaded. The timer froze 0007 and then vanished. The generator quieted. Lights flickered back to green. Ren exhaled, slowly. The tremor in her fingers didn't stop. Then darkness. Her knees gave way. She fell against the floor, breathing shallow, eyes open but unfocused. She didn't hear Blackwood calling her name when he found her. Didn't feel Frost lifting her by the shoulders. Didn't notice Reed arriving, blood on his face but alive, shouting for a medic. Somewhere distant, Alarms faded into silence. Then nothing. When she woke, the world was white. The sterile hum of medical monitors replaced the sirens. The sharp scent of antiseptic replaced smoke. She blinked once, twice. The ceiling didn't move. Her right arm ached, IV lines. Her head felt like glass. "Easy," came a voice. Blackwood, sitting beside her, uniform singed, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion. "You're in the base infirmary. We stabilized the generator. You stopped the detonation." Ren tried to sit up. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't. You burned half your neural interface doing it." She turned her head. "Walcott." "Dead," he said quietly. "Frost shot him when he tried to escape custody." Her eyes closed. A flicker of something passed across her face, not sorrow, not satisfaction, something quieter. Acceptance, maybe. "What about the others?" "Reed's team got out. We've got wounded but no fatalities." He hesitated. "You saved them." Ren didn't respond. She stared at the ceiling. "You want to tell me what that was back there?" he asked softly. "The thing in your neck, the name he used." She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. Vesper wasn't a project. It was a contingency, created after too many missions went wrong. They wanted soldiers who could act without orders, without conscience if necessary. Blackwood's jaw tightened, "And you were one of them." "The last one," she said. "The others broke, I didn't." He studied her face. There was no pride in her voice, no bitterness either, just truth. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "You weren't cleared." He laughed once bitterly. "After all this, I think we're past clearance levels." She turned her head to look at him. "You think I'm proud of it? I wake up every day wondering if what I remember is real or programmed." Her voice softened. "But I still chose to save your people. That's what's real enough for me." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Blackwood leaned back, sighing. "They'll come for you, you know, whoever's still running that project." "I know. You could disappear. I can help you." She smiled faintly. "You think ghosts get to retire?" Outside the infirmary, Frost stood by the door listening, his face unreadable. When she finally turned her head, their eyes met through the glass. He didn't look away. 3 days later, the compound stood half in ruins, half rebuilt. Engineers swarmed the damaged sections, hauling equipment, welding steel. The American flag still hung above the entrance, burned at the edges but unfallen. Ren sat alone near the pier, her uniform jacket folded beside her. The ocean was calm, deceptively calm. Footsteps behind her, Frost. "They're grounding the entire program," he said quietly. "Command, calling it an internal malfunction. Walcott's being labeled a rogue operative. No mention of Vesper." She didn't react. He sat beside her, gaze on the horizon. "Blackwood's pulling strings to keep you off the record. Officially, Lieutenant Atros was wounded during a security breach. Nothing more." Ren finally spoke, and unofficially. Frost hesitated. "They want to recall you." She turned to him slowly. "To finish what Walcott started. To contain what he exposed." She exhaled. "Containment, that's always the word, isn't it?" He studied her profile, the faint scars along her jaw, the quiet exhaustion in her eyes. "You could run." "Maybe I already am." He smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone I once trained with." "Let me guess," she said. "Didn't make it back." He shook his head. "Did, but never came home." She looked at him. "There's a difference." "Yeah," he said softly. "Coming back means surviving. Coming home means forgiving yourself." The wind carried silence between them for a moment. Ren finally said, "Do you ever think about how many ghosts we make out of the living?" Frost's answer was simple: "Every day." She looked back at the ocean. "Then maybe that's all we are, people trying not to become someone else's ghost." Her voice broke just slightly, then steadied. Frost stood. If you ever decide to disappear, Atrose, don't do it alone. She gave a small nod. I'll keep that in mind. He left her there, the sun sinking low, waves breaking softly against the pier. Wren reached into her jacket pocket, pulled out the burnt remnant of her dog tags. The beacon was dead. For a long time she just stared at it. Then she let it fall into the sea. The metal flashed once before sinking beneath the water. She whispered, almost to herself, sometimes survival isn't about winning. It's about remembering who you were before they told you what to be. The wind carried the words away. Behind her, the last of the day's light faded. And for the first time in years, Wren felt something she didn't quite recognize. Peace. Not freedom, not redemption, just the quiet relief of someone who had finally stopped running from the truth. The kind that doesn't end with glory. The kind that simply breathes. Why do they always come for you the moment you start to feel human again? 2 months had passed since Coronado burned. 2 months since Wren Atrose had walked away from the compound with nothing but a bruised spine, a scar across her temple, and a name that no longer belonged to her. She vanished quietly, no discharge papers, no farewell ceremony, just silence. The Navy called it medical leave. Command called it containment. But Wren knew what it really was, erasure. The first week she couldn't sleep. The second she tried to forget. By the third she found herself living in a cabin along the Alaskan coast, far from the sound of marching boots and metallic orders. The cold there was honest. The wind didn't judge. Each morning she'd rise before dawn, wrap her hands in old tape, and run until her lungs burned. Not because she needed to train, because she didn't know how to stop. The body remembers patterns long after the mind wants peace. Sometimes in the middle of the night she'd hear echoes, the soft hiss of a detonator arming, the hum of servers, Walcott's voice, "You were the prototype." And she'd wake with her pulse in her throat, eyes wide, listening for footsteps that never came. Until one morning, they did. The knock was soft, too deliberate to be random. Wren froze, knife in hand before she even breathed. Another knock, 3 taps, pause 2, military rhythm. Someone who knew exactly what that pattern meant. She opened the door halfway. Frost stood there, wrapped in a black parka, snow crusting his shoulders. He hadn't changed, same quiet authority, same guarded eyes, but something about him looked older, heavier. "Took me weeks to find you," he said softly. "You move like someone trying to disappear." "You should have let me," Wren replied. He gave a small, tired smile. "I tried, command didn't." She stepped back. "You came all this way to deliver orders." He didn't move. "No, to warn you." Wren's eyes narrowed. They reopened. "Vesper." The words hit harder than she expected. For a moment, her heartbeat drowned out the wind. "That's impossible," she said finally. "The files were destroyed." Frost shook his head. "Not all of them. Someone leaked the research through Walcott's encrypted channels. A Black Ops unit recovered the data 6 weeks ago." "Recovered or revived?" He hesitated. She knew the answer before he spoke. "They started testing again," he said. "New candidates, modified protocols. They're calling it Vesper Requiem." Wren turned away, staring into the frozen sea beyond her window. "Why tell me?" "Because someone's using your name." Silence. She turned slowly. "What?" "They've built an operative, female, mid-20s, enhanced through your neural model. They're calling her Vesper 9. Wren's pulse spiked. "That name's mine." "Not anymore," Frost said. "She's running missions under your code name, and Command believes it's you." Wren exhaled slowly, her jaw tightening. "So that's the new containment plan. Replace me." Frost stepped forward. "They're sending a strike team to retrieve you, alive if possible, expendable if not." "How long do I have?" He looked at his watch. "Maybe a day." For a long moment, The only sound was the wind pressing against the cabin walls. Wren finally said, "You could have walked away." "So could you." Their eyes met. Understanding passed between them, not the easy kind, but the kind forged by too much blood and too many buried truths. "Pack what you need," Frost said. "We leave in 10 minutes." She didn't ask where. She already knew it wasn't home. By nightfall, they were airborne, an unmarked cargo jet slicing through the dark, heading west across the Pacific. The engines hummed a steady rhythm, the kind that made thought dangerous. Wren sat against the fuselage, staring at the black ocean below. Frost sat opposite, running through encrypted files on a tablet. "Target location, classified facility off the Philippine coast," he said. "Unofficially, it's a private security contractor fronting for the Defense Intelligence Bureau. They've got a Vesper candidate there, your replacement." Wren's expression didn't change. "And the mission?" He met her eyes. "Infiltrate, extract data, identify the handlers. If possible, retrieve the subject." Her tone was dry. "Retrieve or terminate?" "Depends on what we find." She looked back at the darkness outside. "You really think she's me?" "They think she's the perfected version of you," Frost said. "No emotions, no memory gaps, full neural synchronization." Wren gave a small, humorless smile. "Sounds like what they wanted the first time." Frost didn't argue. For hours, neither spoke. The hum of the engines was their only companion. When Wren finally broke the silence, her voice was almost a whisper. "What if she's just another victim? Then we save her. And if she's not?" Frost looked at her. "Then you'll know what to do." Her gaze stayed on the horizon. "That's what I'm afraid of." The island appeared before dawn, a black shape rising from silver mist. The facility was hidden in a jungle basin, its perimeter laced with motion sensors and patrol drones. Wren adjusted her gear silently. No insignia, no name, just the tools of a ghost. They moved through the jungle like shadows. Frost handled overwatch, Wren took point. The air was wet, heavy with the scent of rain and soil. Every sound mattered. When they reached the perimeter fence, she crouched low, cutting the signal field with a pulse jammer. "Window 90 seconds," she whispered. They slipped through undetected. Inside the compound, rows of steel structures loomed under floodlights. Too new to be abandoned, too quiet to be safe. Wren froze near a vent shaft. Movement, 2 guards patterned route. Frost nodded, "Non-lethal if possible." She didn't reply. A few seconds later, both guards were down, unconscious, breathing. "Non-lethal," she murmured. "See, I can adapt." He smirked slightly. "Miracles do happen." They reached the main research block. The door was locked with a biometric scanner. Frost connected a device to the panel. 30 seconds. Wren's eyes wandered through the glass, past the reflection of her own face to the rows of observation pods inside. Shapes suspended in fluid. Human shapes. Her stomach tightened. "They're cloning the neural signatures." "Replicating memory patterns," Frost confirmed quietly. "They're not training soldiers, they're printing them." The door clicked open. They entered. Inside, the silence was thick. Machines pulsed softly, cables glowing with faint blue light. Wren's gaze fell on one pod near the end of the row. The woman inside looked identical. Same features, same scar along the jaw, but her eyes were closed, peaceful, empty. Frost exhaled. "Jesus." Wren stepped closer. Her reflection merged with the woman's face through the glass. "That's her." "Or you," Frost said. She pressed her hand against the surface. The temperature radiating through the glass was almost warm. "She's not operational yet." Frost moved to the terminal. Data logs indicate partial neural mapping. They're uploading stored memories from the Vashi archive. Wren turned sharply. "That's impossible. Those files were destroyed." "Not all of them, apparently." Her voice dropped. Then she'll have everything I had, every trauma, every failure, every scar. Frost looked up, except the choice to stop. The sound of boots echoed down the hall, reinforcements. Extraction windows closing, Frost said. We need the core data and the backup drive. Wren stared at the pod one last time. She deserves a chance to be more than what they made her. Wren, I'll buy you time. Get the drive and meet me at the subdock. Frost hesitated. Don't do this alone again. She smiled faintly. Habit. Then she was gone. The alarms began minutes later. Gunfire in the corridor. Voices shouting. Frost moving fast through the lab, downloading data, burning files. Outside, Wren engaged the security detail with surgical precision. Shots calculated, movements silent, efficient. No wasted energy, no fury, just purpose. But the last soldier she struck didn't fall fast enough. His rifle fired mid-collapse, the round grazing her shoulder. The burn seared through muscle. She didn't flinch. Adrenaline drowned pain. When Frost reached her at the subdock, she was already prepping the boat. You're bleeding, he said. Not fatally. He tossed her the data core. We've got everything, facility, on lockdown. Then we move. As they sped across the dark water, the island burned behind them, flames reflecting off the waves, consuming what remained of the new Vesper program. Frost watched her silently. You didn't destroy the pod, did you? Wren didn't answer. Wren. She finally turned her head. I couldn't. Why? Because maybe she can do what I couldn't, live without ghosts. He looked at her, then nodded once. Then let's hope she never finds you. Wren's eyes stayed on the horizon. If she does, she deserves the truth. The ocean stretched endlessly ahead, the first light of dawn bleeding across the water. For the first time in years, Wren felt something close to purpose, but it wasn't vengeance, it was clarity. She whispered to herself, barely audible over the engine's roar. They made me a weapon, but they forgot weapons can choose what they protect. What do you do when the country you bled for starts hunting the ghost it created? The Pacific stretched forever, a mirror of cold gray water and low sky. Wren kept her eyes on the horizon, letting the wind sting her face. She could taste salt and diesel. Behind her, Frost sat silent at the helm, the burn of exhaustion etched into the lines around his eyes. They had been running for 17 hours. No radio, no transponder. The boat's engine coughed like a dying animal. The fuel gauge was already scraping red. Frost checked the nav screen, still blanked out by static. Signal jammers are still up. Whoever's tracking us has reach. Wren leaned against the railing. That means we hurt the right people. He glanced at her shoulder, the wound bandaged with a strip of his shirt. You should rest before infection sets in. She gave a faint smile. Rest stopped being an option when they decided I was replaceable. The sky darkened again. Ahead, the faint line of a shoreline appeared, Vietnam's central coast, a nowhere strip of mangrove and abandoned fishing villages. That's our stop, Frost said. Wren nodded. We'll disappear inland, find somewhere cold, quiet. He smirked. You mean find whoever's left pulling the strings? She didn't deny it. By the time they reached land, rain had started to fall. Thick, heavy drops drumming against steel. They left the boat half submerged in reeds and walked toward the tree line, their packs light, their weapons heavier. No lights, no sounds but rain and the slow hiss of wind through leaves. When they reached an old French-era bunker buried under the hill, Frost cracked the rusted door open. The air inside was damp, but the walls still held, a relic from another war. Perfect hideout, he said. No power, no comms, no signals. Wren lit a lantern. The flame threw shadows against the concrete. You sound like you've done this before. He smiled without warmth. Everyone who served long enough learns how to disappear. They didn't talk for a while. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was necessary. When Frost finally broke it, his voice was low. "You ever think about what happens after this?" Wren looked up from cleaning her pistol. After. After the running, after the truth, after Vesper. She paused. There isn't an after, there's just what's next. Frost studied her for a moment. "You really believe that?" She met his eyes. "It's how I survived." He nodded slowly. "Maybe it's how you were taught to survive." She didn't answer. Outside, thunder rolled over the sea. By morning, Frost had rigged a small comm scanner from scavenged parts. The device pulsed faintly as he tuned through encrypted frequencies. Wren watched, arms crossed. "You think anyone's still broadcasting this deep?" He shrugged. "Someone always is, especially when they're paid to find people like us." The scanner crackled, static, then voices. "Priority intercept. 2 fugitives confirmed. Probable targets Frost, Endorian and Atros. Wren authorization Black Protocol. Use of lethal force approved." Frost froze. Wren's jaw clenched. "They sent Black Protocol." He nodded grimly. "That's internal termination. No capture, no witnesses." She looked out the narrow slit of the bunker window, watching the rain. "Then we move before sunset." "Where?" "Saigon," she said. "If Vesper Requiem was funded privately, the money trail will end in the corporate networks there." Frost frowned. "You think they'll keep records?" "Everyone keeps records," she said. "Even ghosts leave receipts." That night they stole a truck from a fishing depot and headed north. The headlights cut thin tunnels through the fog. The road wound between rice paddies and rusting outposts. Frost drove. Wren watched. She had always watched: the road, the air, the invisible signs of danger most people missed. At one point, she said softly, "You ever wonder what makes a person cross that line? From soldier to shadow?" Frost thought about it. "I think it's when the mission starts mattering more than the people." She nodded. "That's why Vesper failed." He glanced at her. "Failed." "Every system that forgets the human part of the equation collapses," she said quietly. "They thought they could build soldiers without souls, but it's the soul that keeps the weapon aimed in the right direction." Her tone carried no bitterness, only truth. He didn't reply. There was nothing to add. They reached Saigon by dawn. The city was alive even before the sun fully rose: bikes, steam, chatter. The kind of chaos that swallowed fugitives whole. Wren changed clothes in a crowded alley, trading her worn military gear for civilian fabric. Frost did the same, trimming his beard, donning a weathered cap. "Where first?" he asked. "The finance district," she said. "We're looking for a shell corporation called Orphean Dynamics. Walcott's files listed them as a secondary funder." Frost's brow furrowed. "That name rings a bell." "It should," Wren said. "They supplied tech to half of Defense Intelligence's deep learning programs." They moved through the city like tourists who didn't belong anywhere. When they reached the tall, mirrored building labeled ORPHEON Asia Consulting, Wren felt something cold in her chest. It was too quiet inside, too polished. A receptionist smiled mechanically. "Appointment." Wren handed her a fabricated ID. "Private security audit, level 4 clearance." The woman hesitated only a moment before checking her system. "Conference room, level 16. Mr. Lang will meet you there." As the elevator climbed, Frost muttered, "Lang. That's the name on the Vesper prototype logs." Wren's reply was soft. "Then he's the one who brought me back to life." The doors opened. A man waited by the window, tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit and the calm smile of someone who never lost sleep. "Lieutenant Atros," he said smoothly. "Or should I say Vesper 9? Wren didn't flinch. "You know who I am." "I built you," he said simply. "You were the first success, the perfect blend of discipline and empathy. We didn't mean to destroy that, only to study it. Study it? Frost's voice was sharp. You wiped entire teams to study it. Lang didn't look at him. Collateral, progress demands sacrifice. Ren's hand twitched near her sidearm. Why clone me? Because the body fails, he said. But the data doesn't. Your neural patterns were art. We replicated them, removed hesitation, loyalty, fear. We kept only obedience. She stared at him. You made a weapon that doesn't question orders. He smiled faintly. You call it horror, I call it efficiency. Frost stepped closer. Where's the clone now? Lang met Ren's eyes. Alive, operational, and far more loyal than you ever were. Before Frost could react, a panel on the wall slid open. A figure stepped out of the shadows, slender, poised, identical. Ren's breath caught. The clone Vesper 9 stood before her, same face, same scars, but her eyes were colder. Lang's voice carried like silk, meet the new you. Ren whispered, what have you done to her? Improved her, he said. No pain, no guilt, no hesitation, everything you refused to become. The clone's gaze met hers, empty, searching. Ren took a step forward. You don't have to be him. Lang's tone hardened. She doesn't have to be anything, she obeys. Frost's hand went to his weapon. Lang pressed a button under his desk. Alarms blared. Contain them, he ordered. Vesper 9 moved first, faster than Ren could anticipate. The air cracked as she struck, movements perfectly mirrored, mechanical precision meeting instinct. They fought in silence, blow for blow, reflection against reflection. It was like fighting her own ghost. Frost covered the door, firing at incoming guards. Bullets shattered glass, alarms wailed, chaos swallowed the floor. Ren ducked a strike, countered, locked the clone's arm, but the other woman twisted free with inhuman control. Their eyes met again. For a heartbeat, Ren saw something flicker there, confusion, memory. She seized it. They lied to you, she said, breathless. You're not their weapon, you're their proof. The clone hesitated. Lang shouted, finish it. But instead of attacking, Vesper 9 turned, struck Lang across the face with the back of her hand. The blow sent him sprawling. Ren's chest heaved. We have to go. Frost nodded. Extraction route east stairwell. As they fled, Lang shouted after them, blood in his mouth. You can't kill what's already been copied. They didn't look back. Down 15 flights of stairs, across a burning lobby, through the smoke and chaos of sirens and shouting. Outside, the street boiled with confusion, people running, alarms echoing off glass. Frost waved down a stolen car. Ren climbed in beside him, the clone still silent in the back seat. As they sped through the city, Ren turned, meeting her own reflection again. The clone spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet. What am I? Ren didn't answer right away. She reached out, touching her hand gently. You're the part of me they couldn't control, she said, and that means you get to decide who you are. The clone stared at her, eyes trembling, something human beginning to awaken. Frost gunned the engine. Sirens closed in behind them. Ren looked ahead at the endless road and whispered, more to herself than anyone else. They wanted to create perfection, but all they ever made was proof that imperfection feels. The car vanished into the rain, leaving behind a city that would never forget the night two identical ghosts ran through its heart. And for the first time, Ren realized the mission was no longer about survival. It was about redemption for both of them. How do you save someone who was designed to be you, but without a soul? The rain hadn't stopped for days. It chased them across borders, across names, across the ghost lines of maps. By the time they reached Laos, they ditched 3 vehicles, crossed 2 checkpoints, and slept only in fragments. The world believed Ren Atros was dead again. She didn't correct it. Frost drove the last stretch through mountain fog, his hands steady despite the exhaustion. In the back seat, the clone, her double, stared out the window silent. Her movements were too precise, her breathing too measured, as if she hadn't learned what it meant to relax. Ren watched her in the mirror. The resemblance was still jarring. Same jawline, same scar beneath the ear, same eyes, except hers carried something the other woman didn't yet have. Weight, memory. They stopped in a valley near the border, a forgotten village built of tin roofs and red dust. A monastery sat at the edge, surrounded by thick forest and bells that never rang anymore. Frost killed the engine. "This is where the signal leads," he said quietly. "Last trace from Orpheon's offshore account. Someone's here." Ren stepped out, stretching stiff muscles. The air smelled of incense and rain-soaked wood. The clone followed. She walked like a soldier, balanced, precise, scanning everything. "Do you remember this place?" Ren asked. The woman tilted her head. "Should I?" Ren's voice softened. "No, that's the point." Frost adjusted his pack. "We need shelter before dark. If this is a trap, we'll know soon enough." They entered the monastery courtyard. No monks, just silence, and then a voice. "You shouldn't have come back here." A man stood under the awning, his face half-lit by lantern glow. White hair, weathered eyes. He wore no uniform, yet every line of his posture screamed military. Ren froze. "Director Hawthorne." He smiled faintly. "It's been a long time, Lieutenant." Frost's hand went to his weapon. "He's supposed to be in Washington." Hawthorne said calmly. "Now I'm here. Retirement didn't suit me." Ren's voice was steady. "You ran Vesper." "I managed it," he corrected, "until it outgrew its leash." She stepped closer. "You used me, used children, you called it progress." He nodded almost wistfully. "And yet here you are alive, proof that we were right to begin with." Frost growled. "Right. You turned people into experiments." "People?" Hawthorne looked at the clone behind them. "That one isn't a person, she's data, echo, code wrapped in flesh." Ren's jaw tightened. "Don't." "She doesn't feel," he continued. "She mimics. You see what you want to see in her. That's your flaw, Lieutenant. You keep trying to humanize what was built to replace humanity." Ren stepped forward. "You built her from me. If she's hollow, then you made her that way." Hawthorne's gaze flicked to the clone. "Do you even understand what she's saying?" The clone's expression was unreadable. "Yes," she said softly. Hawthorne chuckled. "Good, then tell me, what do you feel right now?" The woman hesitated, confused. "Confusion isn't feeling," he said. Ren's voice sharpened. "Stop talking to her like she's a thing." "She is a thing," Hawthorne replied coldly. "The perfect soldier, no fear, no regret, no pain." Ren's tone dropped to a whisper. "Then why are you afraid of her?" The silence that followed was heavy. Hawthorne's composure cracked just slightly. "Because she's not supposed to hesitate," he said, "and yet she's standing next to you instead of turning you in." The clone turned her eyes toward Ren. "Why did I stop?" "Because you're learning," Ren said. "Learning what?" Ren looked at her gently. "Choice." For the first time, the woman blinked like a human being, uncertain, fragile. Frost's comm unit crackled suddenly, static, then a voice. "Targets located, coordinates confirmed, engage on signal." He swore. "They're triangulating, drones inbound." Hawthorne smiled sadly. "You can't outrun them this time. They've already locked the perimeter." Ren turned to him. "Then you die here with us." He didn't move. "I knew you'd come back for answers, not vengeance." "Maybe both," she said. "Then ask your question." Ren's voice shook just once. "Why me?" Hawthorne's expression softened almost kindly. "Because you were the only one who looked me in the eye during testing. Everyone else flinched. You didn't. That's when I knew you were the right foundation." Ren felt the old nausea rise in her throat. "You stole my life for convenience." "I gave it purpose," he said. "You gave it orders." Frost interrupted. We need to move now. The faint whine of drones grew in the distance, metallic, hungry. Wren raised her weapon. You built this monster, you end it. Hawthorne smiled faintly. I already have. Before she could react, he pressed a small transmitter into his palm and activated it. A beacon. The sky answered with fire. The first drone strike hit the outer wall of the monastery, tearing it apart in a blinding flash. The shockwave threw them all to the ground. Frost pulled Wren behind cover. He called them in on himself. Wren coughed through smoke. He called them in on us. Hawthorne staggered to his feet amid falling debris. They'll cleanse everything. No more ghosts, no more mistakes. Wren aimed, fired once. The shot took him through the chest. He fell without a sound. The clone watched, eyes wide, not with fear but realization. Wren turned to her. We have to move. They ran through the collapsing halls, debris raining from above. The air burned with ash and static. Outside, the jungle was chaos, drones slicing through the trees, explosions lighting the canopy like a dying sun. Frost shouted over the noise, we can't outrun them. Wren's mind raced. Then she saw it, an old bell tower half buried in vines, metal, tall, conductive. Inside, she ordered. They climbed as the structure shook under impacts. The clone followed last, looking down at the inferno below. Wren reached the top, scanning the panel of old electrical cables still linked to rusted generators. Frost, she yelled, help me reroute this. He saw what she was doing and hesitated. You'll overload the tower. That's the idea. Together, they tore cables free, wiring them into the beacon Hawthorne had dropped. Wren's fingers bled from the metal, but she didn't stop. When the circuit sparked alive, she turned to the clone. This will trigger an EMP pulse. It'll fry every drone in a 10-mile radius. The clone nodded. You'll be caught in it. Maybe, Wren said, maybe not. Frost shouted, they're closing in. Wren met the clone's eyes one last time. If this works, you run. Don't stop, don't look back. The woman hesitated. You could come with me. Wren smiled faintly. You already have me. The clone didn't understand, but something in her face broke, like a crack in glass letting light through. Wren pulled the final switch. The world exploded in white. For an instant there was no sound, no sight, no time, just light swallowing everything. Then the sky went dark. Every drone dropped from the air, lifeless metal raining through smoke. When the silence returned, the bell tower leaned but didn't fall. Frost groaned, coughing, half buried under rubble. Wren. No answer. He pulled himself free, searching through smoke and twisted steel until he saw her, half conscious, bleeding but breathing. The EMP had shorted her neural interface. The faint light under her skin flickered and died. The clone knelt beside her, touching her hand like it was something sacred. Frost's voice cracked. We need to get her out. The woman nodded, emotion trembling in her voice for the first time. She saved me. Frost looked at her, then helped me save her back. Together they carried Wren through the jungle, through the smoke, toward the sound of distant waves. Behind them, the monastery burned, ashes scattering into the storm like lost prayers. By dawn, they reached the coast again. The air smelled of salt and smoke. Wren lay wrapped in Frost's jacket, her pulse weak but steady. The clone watched the horizon, the sky slowly turning from black to gray. Frost spoke softly, you know they'll keep coming. She nodded, then we keep moving. He studied her face, identical yet somehow different now, softer, human. You're not her, he said gently, but I think she'd be proud of who you're becoming. The woman's voice trembled. What will happen to her? She'll wake, Frost said. She always does. The clone turned back toward the sunrise. Then maybe we both will. Wren stirred in her sleep, her hand tightening slightly around Frost's. Her voice was barely audible, but he caught it. No more ghosts, she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. No more. The waves rolled in, washing over the sand, erasing footprints faster than they could be made. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the world's most dangerous secret was still out there, scattered in data fragments, in minds, in memories. But for now, there was only silence, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, what they'd done mattered. Why do the strongest souls always wake up when the world has already moved on? Ren came back to life in fragments. Sound first, the slow rhythm of waves breaking against rock, then smell, smoke, salt, rain-soaked wood, finally pain. A steady, burning pulse through every nerve that reminded her she was still anchored to the world. She opened her eyes. Above her, a ceiling of bamboo and tarp. Around her, the low hum of a generator and the faint rustle of leaves. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she saw Frost sitting nearby, cleaning a rifle with quiet precision. His arm was bandaged, his movements slower than usual. When he noticed her awake, he smiled tiredly. "Welcome back, Lieutenant." Her voice came out rough. "How long?" 3 days, he said. "You were half dead when we found shelter. The EMP fried your interface. Your vitals kept dipping, but you held on." Ren sat up slowly. "The clone." He nodded toward the doorway. "Outside, keeps watch, doesn't talk much, but she hasn't left your side since." Ren exhaled. "She shouldn't be here." Frost's tone softened. "She's not here because she has to be. She's here because she wants to." That word, wants, hung in the air like a fragile truth. Outside, the jungle opened to a gray shoreline. The clone, her mirror, stood facing the sea, wind pulling her hair loose. When Ren stepped out, the woman turned, eyes filled with something entirely new. Not coldness, not obedience, just uncertainty. "You're awake," she said. Ren nodded. "You stayed." "I didn't know where else to go." Ren studied her face. "They'll be looking for both of us now." "I know. You could have run." "I tried," the clone admitted quietly. "But everywhere I went I felt wrong, like I was walking through someone else's life." Ren's gaze softened. "Welcome to being human." The clone looked at her hands as if expecting to find answers written there. "You risked everything to save me. Why?" "Because I know what it feels like to be made for something you didn't choose." The woman hesitated. "And now?" Ren turned toward the horizon. "Now I choose." They stood in silence for a long time, two versions of the same person, divided by a lifetime of choices neither asked for. Frost approached, slinging a small satchel over his shoulder. "We've got a problem. Black Protocol, been terminated, but someone higher just issued a new directive." Ren's voice was quiet. "Let me guess, reclamation." He nodded grimly. "They're coming to retrieve Vesper Tech, both of you." The clone frowned. "Retrieve?" "Alive," Ren said, "for now." Frost looked between them. "We can't keep running forever. There's one last node, the central archive. All the Vesper data still exists there. If we wipe it, you both get to disappear for good." Ren's jaw tightened. "Where?" "Langley," he said, "back where it all started." Ren gave a bitter smile. "Full circle." Frost looked at her. "You in?" She glanced at the clone, then back at him. "You already know the answer." The journey back took them through shadows, false passports, smuggled flights, sleepless nights spent hiding in basements and abandoned cargo holds. Ren's strength returned, but something in her had shifted. The calm precision of the soldier was still there, but layered now with something rawer, purpose without programming. And every night when the world outside went quiet, she'd glance toward the clone and see flickers of herself. The same restless stare, the same haunted stillness. Except the woman was beginning to change. She laughed once at something Frost said. She hesitated before drawing a weapon. She dreamed. Humanity, creeping in like light through cracks in armor. On the seventh night, Ren found her standing alone on the deck of a freight ship, watching the stars. "Do you ever wonder if I'm supposed to exist?" the clone asked softly. Ren leaned against the railing beside her. "That question makes you real enough." The woman turned. "They built me from you, does that make me you?" Ren shook her head. "No, it makes you what they couldn't finish." The clone's voice trembled. "Then what are you?" Ren looked at the horizon, the proof that even the broken parts can still feel. When they reached Virginia, the air was colder, cleaner, unfamiliar. Langley's data facility sat buried beneath layers of steel and security. Their infiltration wasn't an assault, it was a ghost operation. Frost knew the access codes. Ren knew the systems. The clone, who now called herself Nara, moved with silent precision through corridors that once defined her origin. Inside the archive chamber, endless rows of servers glowed like vertical tombstones. Ren stared at them, feeling the hum of electricity like a heartbeat beneath her feet. "This is everything," Frost said quietly. "Every file, every test, every life they erased." Nara looked around, awe and fear in her voice. "It's endless." Ren approached the main console. "Then let's end it." Her fingers danced across the controls. Lines of encrypted code scrolled, unraveling. Project Vesper, Vashi Station, Eidolon, Requiem. Every ghost, every mission, every buried lie. She hesitated at the final command. "Once I trigger this, there's no going back." Frost placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's the point." Nara watched her reflection flicker in the glass panel. "You're erasing yourself." Ren looked at her gently. "No, I'm freeing us both." She pressed the key. The lights dimmed, systems screamed. Data began to vanish, one file after another, consumed by digital fire. Then an alarm. "Unauthorized deletion detected," an automated voice said, "initiating containment." Frost swore. "They've locked the exit." Ren's eyes darted to the emergency schematic. Secondary shaft, north corridor. They ran. Sirens blared, lights strobed. Behind them, the archive room began to implode, servers melting from internal overload. Halfway down the corridor, Frost fell back, grabbing his side. "Go." Ren stopped. "I'm not leaving you." He smiled weakly. "You're terrible at following orders." Nara looked between them. "I'll help him, you finish it." Ren hesitated, then nodded. "When the system collapses, the EMP will wipe everything. Stay low." She sprinted toward the control nexus, smoke rising around her, alarms merging into one long metallic scream. At the final terminal, she entered the master key sequence. The system warned, "Permanent data purge, 5 minutes 2 critical failure." Ren leaned against the console, breathing hard. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, older, free. For a moment, she thought about the girl she'd been, the one who thought loyalty was the same as purpose. Then she whispered, "No more ghosts." The facility shook violently. Sparks fell from the ceiling. She turned back, Frost and Nara running toward her through smoke. He shouted, "Time up." Ren grabbed Nara's hand, pulling her through the breach as fire consumed the chamber. They burst into the cold night air, collapsing on the tarmac as the ground beneath them roared. A column of smoke rose into the sky, the last breath of Project Vesper. Hours later, they stood by the river outside the city. Dawn broke pale and soft over the water. Frost's arm was in a sling. His eyes were tired but calm. Nara sat a few feet away, watching ripples on the surface. Ren joined her, everything gone. Nara nodded, "Except us." Ren smiled faintly. "That's all that ever mattered." They sat in silence, the world slowly waking around them, sirens distant, birds beginning to sing. Nara spoke softly, "What happens now?" Ren thought about it. "We stop running, we start living." Nara turned to her. "Do you think we deserve that?" Ren looked at her twin reflection in the water. Deserve has nothing to do with it. Sometimes, you just have to forgive yourself enough to begin again. Frost joined them, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. Where do you go when the war ends? Ren looked at him. Anywhere it doesn't start again. They all laughed quietly, tired, hollow but real. A small fishing boat drifted past on the river, its engine sputtering softly. Life, simple and unaware, moving on. Ren stood facing the sunrise. The light caught the edge of her scar, turning it almost golden. Maybe that's what freedom really is, she said. Not erasing the past, just refusing to live inside it. Frost nodded. And what about her? Ren looked at Nara, who had finally begun to smile. She's the future, a version of me that gets to start without orders. Nara met her gaze. And you? Ren turned toward the water one last time. Me, I'm finally just Ren. The wind lifted her hair, carrying away the last trace of the soldier, the operative, the experiment. What remained was a person, flawed, scarred, but whole. She walked down to the riverbank, pulled from her pocket a small piece of metal, the burnt remnant of her old dog tags. The edges still bore her name, ATRAUSR. She held it for a long moment, then let it fall. It sank slowly, vanishing beneath the surface. Nara watched quietly. Was that important? Ren nodded. It was proof I once belonged to something. Now I belong to myself. The sun rose higher. The light reached the water, turning it to silver. Frost picked up his pack. You two ready? Ren glanced back once, taking in the world as if for the first time. Yeah, she said. Let's go home. They started walking, 3 silhouettes against the morning light, heading toward a horizon that, for once, didn't look like an ending. And as the camera would fade to black, the narrator's voice would soften. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Sometimes the loudest courage is the quiet kind, the kind that forgives, rebuilds, and keeps walking. And sometimes the ghosts we fight aren't meant to be defeated, only understood.